Good evening. Let's stand for pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. I am Teresa Walker, President of the Ozark City Schools Board of Education. I'm joined this evening with the other board members, Mr. Larry Hicks, Mr. Herman Jackson, Mr. Nicholas Gould, and two-term board member Leslie Reeder. We're here this evening to interview candidate number 2 for the position of Superintendent of Schools for the City of Ozark, Dr. Danelle Peterman. She's currently the principal of E.A. Smith Middle School. Dr. Peterman will answer a series of questions that have been developed by the Board of Education and sanctioned by our school board attorney, Mr. Kennedy. Our moderator for the evening is Ms. Amy Pierce, who is with the City Board of Education Central Office. There will be no questions from the audience. Ms. Pierce.
Before Dr. Peterman comes, I would like to ask you to please turn your electronic devices to silence. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Danelle Peterman, and I'm going to share a little bit of information about my professional experience. I started my education journey in 1992 in Selma, Alabama, as a special education teacher at Clark Elementary School. I taught grades K through 6. After 2 years of teaching, I returned to Ozark and began teaching as an itinerant special education teacher at Lisbon Elementary School and D.A. Smith. After 2 years as an itinerant teacher, I moved to Eastgate School and began teaching special education, 7th and 8th grade, English, and math. In 2002, after 9.5 years in the classroom, I became the director of special education for Ozark City Schools. As a special education director, I work with all stakeholders, teachers, principals, students, and parents to ensure compliance with special education laws and regulations. In addition, relationships with other directors around the state are formed. During my tenure as a special education director, Ozark City Schools remain in compliance through monitoring, along with no due process hearings, and also, no due process hearings, and as also, I was able to be in compliance with all special education laws and regulations. During my tenure as a special education director, I had the desire, while I was a director of special education, I had a desire to return back into the building setting and also a desire to enroll in school to begin my doctoral degree. After a heartfelt conversation with the superintendent, he asked me what was my ultimate goal, and my response was to be superintendent one day. In 2005, I changed direction and began serving as an assistant principal at D.A. Smith and Mixon Elementary School. And in those capacities, I worked alongside the building principals to carry out the pertinent duties needed within the building to include curriculum and discipline practices. I formed a relationship with teachers, students, and parents. After serving in the assistant principal capacity, I was asked to serve as the interim director of the Carroll High School Career Center. While there, I realized that the Career Center was a treasure. At the time, I felt that it did not get the recognition from students and even the community. I saw the potential that it had, and I realized that there were several grant opportunities to make the school a better place. I took the initiative and wrote 2 grants. One grant was a Southern Regional Education Review Board Technology Centered at Work grant, which afforded the opportunity to help leaders and teachers adopt continuous improvement practices that foster rigorous academic and career pathway curriculum. Also, with SREB support, leaders and teachers collaborated with sending high schools and community and technical colleges to design and implement career pathways. In addition, I was able to write a second grant that afforded the opportunity for the Career Center to get needed technology, which included a 3D printer and so much more. The grant was over $150,000. I was only there for a half a year and was unable to oversee the process that each grant afforded, but I laid the foundation for the Career Center to be a force within the community. The newly hired director of the Career Center had the needed tools to make the Career Center what it needed to be for the students and the community. After leaving the Career Center, I was chosen to be the director of the Opportunity Academy, an alternative school setting where it was geared to address trouble and at-risk students for discipline, and a place where struggling students were given the opportunity to recover lost credits and not to be a dropout. I was given the freedom to set it up how I thought it would serve the students best. With that being said, any student assigned to the school had to meet with me personally where they were placed on an individualized learning plan. I sat down with the student and the parent and had the opportunity to find out their individual perceived weaknesses and strengths academically and behaviorally. Together, the students and I set academic and behavioral goals that they worked towards during their time at the academy. I made it very clear to the student and the parent that we had their best interest in mind and we wanted to see them succeed. The intake process was a design opportunity for the student to be reflective about what got them there, whether it was academics or behavior. The staff was in place to help them succeed in their academics. I also developed a multidiscipline team that consisted of community stakeholders to include licensed practical counselors, juvenile probation, and other stakeholders to discuss solutions to help meet the unique needs of students. I served in that capacity for about 3 years. While serving as a director, several students were very successful and were able to graduate from high school. The main ingredient that I saw was students knew that someone cared and would always listen to them. I had students who wanted to stay instead of going back to their base school. It was truly an opportunity for students of Dale County schools in Ozark City. During the 2011 and 2012 school year, I became the principal of D.A. Smith Middle School, where I am currently. As a middle school principal, I knew that the job could be demanding. In the eyes of the community, the overall perception of D.A. Smith Middle School was not very good at all. I wanted to change that. Unfortunately, middle schools across the nation get bad press. When students enter middle school, it is like a caterpillar entering the metamorphosis stage. Students enter as sixth graders and are in a stage of adolescence where they are confused and very hormonal. One minute they want to be grown-ups and the next they want to be babies. One minute they are happy and the next minute they are mad or sad. As they transition through middle school from 7th to 8th grade, they learn who their friends are along with who is no longer their friend. They learn things about themselves and literally morph into a young adult by the time they emerge as ninth graders at the high school. My first order of business as principal at D.A. Smith, I became a fellow and worked with the Educational Leadership Center for the Wiregrass. As a fellow, I worked with other strong leaders across the Wiregrass area to demonstrate improvement in my leadership skills, to become proficient in continuous school improvement, and to impact positive changes in student performance. By working with other leaders, I was able to develop a personalized growth plan that we implemented to help continuous improvement at D.A. Smith Middle School. The model utilized was a transformational leadership model, which outlines the kind of leadership style I use. I believe in setting a vision and creating a team to meet the goals, and all the while turning followers ultimately into leaders. In other words, as a transfer at D.A. Smith, we needed change. I established a leadership team, and together we identified areas that needed improvement, put a concise plan in place to make the needed changes. Some of the areas worth noting that improved over time was the school's culture and climate. Teachers were happy to be at school. They felt that their voices were heard. In addition, we created a safe and orderly environment by placing safety features throughout the building to include buzzers at door entryways and a barrier that separated the hall from the main entrance. Cameras inside and outside and increased student achievement. With consistent teaching, progress monitoring, and evaluating through the use of formative and summative assessments and data analysis, D.A. Smith Middle School's report card score increased from a C to a B, with 100% growth of every student for 2 years in a row. My pivotal belief in education is that every student can learn and every student can succeed. There may be barriers that could hinder a student from achieving. I became an educator because I believe that every student can learn. I chose special education because I wanted to make a difference in the lives of students that others may have given up on. We know there are a lot of barriers that can hinder student success, but as educators, it is our job to find the barriers and remove them. One may ask, why do I want to be the superintendent of Ozark City Schools? Well, the question is, why not? Ozark City Schools is a good school system that can be a great school district. Jim Collins, the author of Good to Great, states that to go from good to great, one must be willing to do whatever needs to be done to make it great. As an educator, I hold a bachelor's and master's degree in special education. I have a master's certification in educational leadership and a doctorate in educational leadership. I'm completing my 29th year in education, and I've had the pleasure of wearing many hats in the education field, and have had the pleasure of making an effective, positive change in almost every area I served. I'm a Council of Leaders of Alabama Schools Credential Certified Instructional Leader, where I have the privilege of working with some of the top educators in the state on competencies to include planning, progress, culture, student growth and achievement, strategic management, effective instructional practices, and ethical leadership. I'm a native of Ozark and connected to the Ozark community and have served on various boards as a community member. I am invested in Ozark as a lifelong resident and a 1987 graduate of Carroll High School. My children are graduates of Carroll High School, and my husband is a retired police of Ozark. I believe that I have what is needed to take Ozark City Schools from a good school district to a great school district.
At this time, we will start the questioning for the questions that the board has prepared for the end. The superintendent has to make multiple decisions in a variety of areas every day. Please describe your management and decision-making style and give a few examples of strategies you have found most effective.
As a school leader, multiple decisions must be made in a variety of areas. There are multiple decisions involving student discipline, student achievement, staff decision, building decisions, etc. When I have to make a decision, I always make an informed decision based on board policies and procedures. Depending on the nature of the situation, I always try to get all of the facts. It is very important that I make an informed decision. I don't make decisions based on feelings and emotions. At the end of the day, I always want to have a clear conscience. So my approach can be twofold depending on the situation. If it is a decision that I can involve others, my first approach may be a team approach. I usually gather my leadership team. My leadership team consists of my assistant principal, counselor, instructional coach, a teacher from each grade level, and a special area teacher. Also, to ensure that it is an informed decision, I may use data to include surveys, statements, and other pertinent data. The leadership team meet with their grade levels and then they share the information. By doing it this way, I can get buy-in from the faculty. Another approach is I gather all of the information from statements and other data, and I make a decision based on the information that I receive. So my strategy is to gather as much information that I can so a decision can be made from a team approach or an individual approach based on policies and procedures. And one example is scheduling. For example, a few years back, we actually had our science and social studies semester. This is pre-COVID. And at that time, the teachers felt as if it was just not enough, it was too much and too many students in the class. And so I listened to them, and then we changed it to an alternating schedule. We changed the schedule, and it was not good. So we kind of went back to the drawing board and went back to doing a semester situation. But the whole goal was I listened, I did get the buy-in, I got the input from the teachers, and then a decision was made. So that's just one example.
Thank you. What do you see as the role of the superintendent as it relates to the employee groups, students, and the community and the school board?
This question has several answers. The ultimate role of the superintendent is to ensure overall student success and student achievement. Effective superintendents focus efforts on creating goal-oriented districts by focusing on data analysis, providing supports, communicating student learning outcomes, setting expectations, professional development, and then obviously annually evaluating your principals, reporting student achievement to the board, and observing classrooms during school visits and gathering resources for instruction. As a superintendent, I will ensure that time, money, and personnel materials are allocated to accomplish district goals. And also, as a principal, and this is just an example, it is important to remember that let me just go back, I'm sorry, I got mixed up in that. Research makes it clear that the superintendent holds many roles to include overseeing the processes needed to ensure students achieve academic success. So in that regard, the superintendent should be informed about educational best practices to ensure academic success for every student. Secondly, I believe that the role of the superintendent is to be the cheerleader and also the face of the school district. As it relates to students, the superintendent should be someone the student knows and they can relate to. I believe the superintendent should be visible at all times, and the superintendent must be willing to roll up her sleeves and establish relationships with students, parents, community, to include the Fort Rucker community and the school board. I believe the superintendent must be well informed, and lastly, the superintendent must be approachable and willing to listen to her constituents. And again, I believe that when I say by being approachable, I believe that like right now, I know all my student names. And so I think that the superintendent should be able to know who their students are and to be able to communicate and be relatable. And then of course, be aware of educational best practices as an instructional leader.
Thank you. Based on your knowledge of our system, what do you believe should be the top 2 priorities for our schools and community?
The top priorities of the school district are first closing the achievement gap that has widened due to the pandemic. As a school district, we need to utilize ESSER funds to hire teachers of reading and math in all grades. We need to establish summer programs and after-school opportunities to help close the achievement gap. The funds need to be utilized to purchase high-quality instructional materials to progress monitor our students to determine where they are academically and to utilize the funds to hire specialty personnel to help close those achievement gaps. The second priority for the school district is to create a sense of pride throughout the schools and the community, and also to overall increase the enrollment for the school district. The enrollment numbers have consistently dropped over the last 5 years. I need, as a superintendent, be willing to work with the mayor and city council to see what we can do to bring more jobs and adequate housing to the community, engage Fort Rucker families. Currently, right now, I attend the newcomers welcomes each month to meet potential students and parents. And I formed a relationship with the Fort Rucker liaison, Kim Cozell. Also, we need to engage in more school pride. There needs to be unity across the board. I think there's too much negative talk about our schools and district. So we need to form a needed focus group composed of parents, students, and community members and leaders to address their concerns about every school. Now, how would I address them? We'll begin by listening and then taking the necessary steps to fix the problem. And here's an example. When I was the assistant principal at D.A. Smith Middle School, there was a time where there was a lot of negative talk in the community. So I got with a group and we decided to go to the mayor. And we wanted people from the community to let's do something about all the negativity that's going on, that people are talking in the community. So we created what we call Ozark Pride. And out of that group, Ozark Pride, you know, they needed to know about things that were happening in the community because we just listened. And if you notice out front, there's the electronic sign that was born out of that group, out of the Ozark Pride. So I think if we take that same concept and get and put it in the schools, bring the community together, and let's generate some pride. Today, I think I was talking and we were saying, you know, we talk about Eagle Pride. What is Eagle Pride? I think we need to define Eagle Pride, and then everybody needs to be able to just embrace what it is. And we need to just have that unity. Okay.
In your role as superintendent, how would you work to promote engagement of all students, parents, and community in our system?
Engagement is so much more than standing on the outside and looking in. According to research, Chadwick defines public engagement as a purposeful effort starting in either the school system or the community to build a collaborative constituency for change and improvement in schools. The National School Boards Association defined public engagement as an ongoing collaborative process from which the school district works with the public to build understanding, guidance, and active support for the education of children in its community. Also, engagement, there needs to be a collaborative process in which groups have group thinks through issues and they struggle to arrive at solutions that they all can live with. So we need to share the decision-making power. So the short answer is to create partnerships and keep parents, students, and all stakeholders informed. The superintendent needs to listen and then lead with integrity. Each school can keep parents informed by sending weekly or bi-weekly or monthly information regarding any activity that is taking place in their schools and within the school district. And lastly, as I said, lead with integrity. And I need to practice what I preach as a superintendent. One of the things that we can do, we have the mass communication system. So definitely keep parents informed by taking events and sending it out, utilizing our mass communication system. And the more they know, the more I believe they will be engaged.
Thank you. What role do extracurricular activities have in our school system and in our community?
Extracurricular activities is very important in the schools. The National Center for Education Statistics states extracurricular activities provide a channel for reinforcing the lessons learned in the classroom, offering students the opportunity to apply academic skills in a real-world context, and are thus part of a well-rounded education. I believe that we as a school district should provide extracurricular activities for our students. Extracurricular activities help form and establish meaningful relationships. Students are able to find what hobby or sport that they may do well in. And I believe that students should find their group and continue to grow and increase and be a better person. Just today, I was talking to the high school principal, Ms. Manus, and she was explaining how we have a new activity that is called e-gaming, or and is giving students who are gamers the opportunity to participate in sport-like activities, so such as mat and football, those kinds of things, and it will be sanctioned under the Alabama High School Athletic Association. So I think this is just one more opportunity for students who typically can't play sports physically can do gaming. So I think extracurricular activities are just very important so that students can find their group and belong, and it makes a better student ultimately.
Thank you. Working with a variety of groups is part of the superintendent's responsibility. Give some examples of how you have encountered opposition and how you have dealt with the resulting situation.
Well, working as a school leader in general can lead to some oppositional situations. I've encountered oppositions that surround the dress code, discipline, cheerleading, and personnel. I've dealt with the resulting situations by remaining professional and dealing with the issues head on. I realize that you cannot make everyone happy in situations, but always handle the situation fair and consistent. One example, we had an issue one year where we did not have, maybe had one black cheerleader. The best way to handle that, we just found a way where we could get more students involved by providing camps and clinics for students. So that way, by the time they tried out at the middle and high school level, they could be prepared for cheerleading. And then also provide fundraisers because a lot of students, they kind of feared trying out because they did not have enough money. So the best way to handle that, we provided fundraisers. So in situations like this, and it was said earlier today, it's a problem solving. So we'll just have to find ways to solve the problem. But I'm always, I handle it fair and consistent.
If there is a need for a tax increase to assist with the school system funding, how would you present the proposal to the community?
Voters must be informed about the impact of the tax increase, timelines, and any other financial information and impact. As a superintendent, I will tell my story to the public. Why is there a dire need for a tax increase? The goal will be to get people involved. The more involved, the better they will be willing to own it. I'll allow individuals to lead the charge by giving them a voice. The committee must be willing to be transparent and to voters and always communicate. The campaign committee can be very specific and concise with any answers to questions and respond swiftly to reduce the risk of negative campaigns. So as my role as a superintendent is to sell and to tell why there's a need, and then get as many people involved as I can and give other people a voice, give them a voice, so they will be able to own why we're needing a tax increase.
Thank you. High performance by students and accountability are priorities for our school system. Eliminating the student achievement gap due to part of COVID-19 is a must. Please share what approaches or strategies you will pursue to eliminate the gap.
Okay. To eliminate the gap that has been produced by COVID, I will ensure that funding provided by the federal government, ESSER 2 and 3 funding, is utilized to meet the widening gap in English and math and other areas to include social and emotional needs. I will meet with each school administrator and find out what their individual school needs are. I will expect that every administrator know their failure rate and have an expectation that every school will have a plan in place to close the achievement gap. I would expect for every plan to address the need for additional personnel in the form of math and reading, interventionists, and progress monitoring, along with other research-based material utilized to help close the achievement gap. To ensure, under my guidance, to ensure that the plans developed in each school are effective, I will require data analysis reports presented by each school's administrative team on student standards, attendance, and discipline at the end of each 9-week period. In addition, I will require the school administrative team to report the results and share their plan of actions on how they will meet proficiency. Ongoing progress monitoring will be required by the utilization of research-based assessment to include Ames Web, which I know they use at the elementary schools, K through 3, Scantron assessment in grades 4 through 12, along with ACT prep. Now, the results from those assessments should provide information on whether instructional practices are supported by the data. Currently, data meetings are held in my building, and teachers are able to identify the strengths and weaknesses of students. And we utilize the pre and post assessments of standard to determine proficiency towards those standards. So I would expect for every building to be very transparent about their data.
What leadership and guidance would you provide to ensure the approach or strategies are properly implemented, evaluated, and adjusted over the time to meet the changing needs of students?
As I stated, my leadership, I would ensure that those, like what I just stated, the analysis and those leadership teams are meeting at each school. So that way that we can definitely make sure that the data the evidence supports the data.
Thank you.
I answered it all in one, I'm sorry. I had it all in one answer.
What is your experience with financial management, budget development, financial management, etc.? How would you approach the budget process to ensure success during financially challenging times?
The superintendent must ensure that everything is done at the right time and at the right cost. She needs to understand that the needs exist within a school district and proper checks and balances are in place to meet the needs of the district, including local and federal funds. Currently, I work very close with my bookkeeper at my school, and I will do the same with Ms. Miller, the Chief Financial Officer for Ozark City Schools. I will ensure that our needs are met within the district and have checks and balances in place to make sure the school is in compliance with their local school budgets. I'm aware that there are federal funds, including your Title I and IDEA, state funds where a budget committee at each school is formed to determine how library enhancement, technology, professional development monies are spent. And to ensure that there is a success during financial challenging times, I'm very cognizant that we must always stay within our means. I will always look for grant opportunities and encourage teachers and administrators to do the same.
Thank you. In support of our diverse community, how will you ensure diversity in all aspects of the school system, including equitable opportunities for students and hiring of faculty and staff?
We have a very diverse community, and to ensure that diversity is in all aspects of our school, I will encourage every student to participate in our clubs, activities, and organizations. In some ways, to support cultural inclusion includes helping students live, encourage students to have cooperation among diverse groups, help students develop a sense of social responsibility beyond their group, and develop positive school-family relationships. Club sponsors right now, I know at the high school, they're doing an excellent job. I sent an email to their students referencing sport tryouts, color guard, band, and clubs, and they've even incorporated sending those emails to our 8th grade students who will be 9th grade next year. So we're encouraging our students to check their emails so that they are getting that information. The utilization of our parent communication system can also be utilized to make parents and students aware of upcoming opportunities to participate in clubs and plays and other activities. As far as hiring diverse staff members, have representation in college career fairs and various HBCUs across the state to include Alabama A&M, Tuskegee University, and Alabama State University.
Thank you. Describe your experiences with implementation of new technology to include the impact it had on teachers, students, and parents, specifically addressing the COVID-19 pandemic technology implementation. Knowing what you know now, what, if any, would you do?
COVID-19 has helped almost everyone embrace technology. I believe before COVID-19, we had a few teachers who kind of shunned and really did not really want to use technology, but whether they liked it or not, prior to the pandemic, Google Classroom was utilized at our school. As a principal, I really did not use it too much. However, I've learned to embrace the platform to include Google Meet. Utilizing Google Classroom and the G Suite has been very helpful to our teachers and our students. As the start of the year, I provided a handbook to parents on how to utilize Google Classroom. Teachers are able to assign assignments and students are able to assess them and complete assignments without missing a beat. The Google Meet opportunity gives teachers an opportunity to meet face-to-face with their students, and with the use of an Elmo and other technology that they have in the classroom, it gives them the ability to share screens to see the actual assignment. So it makes learning easier for both the teacher and the student. And also, we can't ignore Zoom. We are able to now use Zoom. Would I change anything with the implementation of the use of technology? I don't think I would change anything. The good thing about BA Smith teachers is teacher was already familiar with Google Classroom and the platform. I think the learning curve was utilizing it daily. However, the teachers embraced it, and they're very, it was very refreshing to see even teachers who were reluctant at first about the technology. So they embraced it wholeheartedly. I think along the way, each teacher made the necessary adjustments to fit their individual needs in the classroom. And moving forward, away from a pandemic year, I can see the use of technology in the classroom utilized more and more. In addition, I can see weather days a thing of the past, as long as there are no power outages. So I really see now that we can see how technology has made a difference. You know, I believe that we will continue in the same vein, utilizing technology in the teaching of our students. So I will definitely embrace it and keep it there.
Well, this will conclude our prepared question portion. The board has an additional question for you tonight. At the conclusion of your first year as superintendent, how would you gauge your success in the areas of most needed improvement?
I would reflect over the year, and how would I gauge? I think surveys, just to kind of get information about, from the parents' perspective, from teachers' perspective, from the board's perspective, just really reflect over the year and then just gauge the, everything through surveys, and based on the results of those surveys, make whatever adjustments that are needed, so that way the next year can be better. So really the answer to that is just reflect over the year, get information through surveys, and see where changes are needed to be made and make those changes.
This concludes the interview. Are there any additional comments that you would like to make?
I do have a few questions, if that's okay. What is the board's perception of student academic strength and weaknesses? And I know I'm a principal here, but just from your perspective, what do you feel is, what is your perception of academic strengths and weaknesses here in OCS?
I think, just speaking for the board, I think we're very concerned about the academic report cards that we have gotten in the past. We are anxious for those to come out, and since it breaks it down citywide by each school, we pay close attention to those schools, and then we've gotten enough where we can compare one year to the next and actually pinpoint certain areas. But I think you're on target. English and math, the reading, that's always something of utmost concern.
And lastly, and I think this is just a common question, but what are your expectations of the superintendent?
Expectations of what?
Of the superintendent, of the new superintendent.
That's a good question, and it was asked last night as well, a very similar question. I think, and I want to say this, which includes you. We have an excellent school system. I am very proud of our school system, everything that everybody's done, especially this year, and a tremendous challenge. So the leadership, we never know what's next. We never know what's coming next year, just like this year. But to have someone that's capable to meet those challenges, to get us through as we have this year and continue that. You know, I think an advantage for you, being local and in the system, you see a lot of the things we're doing great, but you can also see possibly from a different point of view how we can take it even farther. So I would certainly encourage whoever our superintendent is to look at ways we can continue developing it.
And lastly, I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity. You know, just to be able to land in the top 5 out of 33, that's amazing all by itself. And today was a good day. And thank you for the hospitality, Mr. Hicks, and all of you in Ozark City. Like I said, I am an Ozark City employee, but to be able to walk through the schools and to see things from just the perspective of how we did things today was just an amazing. It was an amazing day. So thank you for this opportunity.
Could I respond to that? I got to say this, she did a lot of walking today, going to all the students. And those heels were about that. I did not know how she did that, but she did a good job.
This will conclude our interview with Dr. Peterman. We have a reception prepared for anyone who would like to join us in the reception room.